Okay, friends of YouTube, back to part 7. Last section we got the engine mounted on the plane and everything, so now we have to install the electronic ignition, the fuel tank, and the 2 servos for the choke and the throttle. So I'm trying to shorten these down. It's just really hard to do. So this comes with this plastic spiral protection stuff. I went ahead and took the liberty of putting that on the 2 leads. The lead in the center of your electronic ignition, that is for a tachometer, which is optional, which I'm not going to use. So I just folded it all up nice and neat and put a zip tie on it. The one on this corner will go to the sensor on the engine, and then the red-black lead will go to your battery switch harness from that. So what we're going to do is I got a piece of foam cut. I'm going to mount this on the bottom of this engine box because there's plenty of room down here. And what I did, I went ahead and took the liberty of this. I laid it on there and drew my lines, and I'm going to secure it this direction with a piece of Velcro, and then I'm going to put a zip tie around the endwise so it can't slide. So it should hold it pretty secure. Anyway, I drilled a hole at each end of the line, and then I have this little saw that I sawed through. If you don't have that, a hobby knife, just score that 2 or 3 times back and forth, and it'll just go right through that, and you can cut your groove out. And I've got me a piece of Velcro, a hook and loop already cut. So what we want to do first is run that through. Get the little splinters out of the way. Let's run that through from the inside. This may be, here, let me get my tweezers. Figure out what I did with them. Here they are. Let's see if we can guide that down through there. There we go. Now that end. Get in there. Okay. Alright, we've got our Velcro. Now, what I need to do is take a couple of, I don't have any real long ones, so what I'm going to do is double these. Take 2 zip ties, start the end together on one of them. And actually, you know what? Here, let me do this over. I probably need to, I need to put one end of it up through here. Make sure I get between my cables here. So, well, get the end of it bent. Get this started, and I may have to use my tweezers again to get this through the hole. Oh, maybe not. Okay, now let's turn the plane over very carefully. Get all this stuff out of the way. Oh, before I forget too, this comes with an extra lead that comes with your electronic ignition. Don't worry about it, and that's to hook to a kill switch if you're going to use one. I don't. I just use my choke lever to kill my engine if I need to real quick. So, or my trim. Okay, we've got our Velcro coming out the bottom and our zip tie. So we will lay the foam on there, and let's see. I'm going to lay this direction because I want the plug wire away from the muffler side. So what we're going to do is cinch that down really good. Cut a little bit of excess off of that. Okay. Then we're going to, between our wires here, Let's see, I'm going to put that on this side. We're going to zip tie this down to hold it from that direction. We'll cut the excess off of that. Okay, that is very secure. It's not going anywhere. So then what I'm going to do is fold that wire over to right there. This plug wire is very, very hard to get on there. I mean, you really got to put some pressure. Matter of fact, I'm going to have to get a block of wood. Hurts my hand. What do I do with it? Here it is. Okay. That plug wire is not going to come off of there. It's really hard to push down on there. Now, I have, if I can find it, I have some of these little plastic clamps. You can buy these hardware stores, electrical department or whatever. I am going to put that on that cable. And then I need a screw here. I had one laid out. I don't know what I did with it. Here we go. Oh, that's too long. Let me find a screw and I'll be right back. Okay, I found a little wood screw. Drilled a small hole. Threaded it, backed it out, filled it full of CA, and threaded it back down in there. And that'll hold that cable solid. Now, these over here, we're not just real sure yet where we're going to put the batteries and stuff. So this one I can actually, well, yeah, I can actually go ahead and run this through. I'll drill a hole over here and run this through to the switch harness. Let's see, let me get this. Now we got to figure out. Okay. Alright, we're going to plug up our sensor. And we got to figure out how we want to route that. I'm going to have to come over here, so we'll have to put another, I have another one of those clamps. Let me get this hooked up. Okay. Plug that in good and solid, and then it comes with a safety clip to put on there. So be sure and put that on your wire so it doesn't get pulled apart. Now, let's see how we're going to do this here. Well, not real sure how I want to fasten that down. I don't want that sticking up there either. I don't want my wires all bent. So let me figure out how I'm going to route this and I'll be back. Okay. Well, what I've done is let's see if I can get this up here. I drilled 2 holes here, put a zip tie around that, and my rubber protector is going to protect it from the corner of that. And I think I'm going to go ahead and drill another hole here and here and put another zip tie just to, well, I don't know, I guess it'll be alright. And then up here I had another one of those plastic clamps, and I just drilled a little hole with a short wood screw and put that clamp on this to keep that, for any vibration down from your wires just wiggling all over the place. So alright, the ignition is pretty well installed. The only thing I have to do is run this wire. Let's see what I got on the inside here. Oh man, that's a closed-in cavity right there. There's a bulkhead here. Let me get this back up here. There's a bulkhead in here to here that's all closed in, so I'll have to drill through two pieces. Well, actually, you know what? That will run, and that'll reach right up through there. I can do that because my ignition switch is going to go right here. Matter of fact, there's a hole right here for the large size ignition switches that I use. So let's get that cut out. And my other one. Alright, I like these heavy duty switches that have the charge jack built in and everything. Now I get these at badbradgraphics.com. He's got a lot of neat stuff, real reasonable. These regular switches with the charge jack are $8 a piece, and then this one, if you will notice, has a bright green LED light on it. I like that on my ignition. The reason for that is if your switch gets turned on your ignition, it makes no noise. You don't know that it's on, and it'll run your battery down, and if it's LiPo battery, it'll ruin it. So I like this one on my ignition because I can see the light. Now on the electronics part of it, if that's left on, you got a hum or something going on, you'll know that it's on. So that's why I like this one for the ignition. So let's get my screwdriver out here. Take the screws out of this cover. I got more stuff laying here and I know what to do with tools. It has a little back plate on it. Now that hole should already be cut out for this, hopefully. Now there's a little back plate and a rubber gasket. You want to leave the rubber gasket on the switch because it goes against the fuselage right here. So I have to separate those. They're kind of stuck together. Come on, there we go. Alright, now let's see if this is gonna fit through there. Look at that. It's almost like it was made for it. Alright. Now I need a little bitty drill. About that size right there. And it's a 1/16. Alright, we're going to drill the holes through there. Now, this back plate will go back, the wires will go through it. We'll slide it back up on the switch and then put our screws back in. It's that simple. And then we'll put the electronic switch on the other side. It does not have a hole for a switch this size. It has just the regular hole for the little bitty switch, but we'll cut it out to fit this. Alright, we have ignition switch and this wire. We run it through here, get a hold of it. Okay, there we got it. Now let's take the safety clip off of this and let's plug, make sure black to black. Here we go. And then I'll put our safety clip back on there. Make sure it's snapped on good. Alright, now we can pull that slack in there like that and we'll fasten it up in here somewhere. And I can put another one of those plastic brackets right here if I want to. I think I've got some more, but I'm not sure. But you know what? It'd be just as easy just to put a zip tie on it right there. So I think I will do. Well, I'm gonna wait because it actually in the manual it shows to put your ignition battery right here on the inside of this. But we're not gonna mount our batteries just yet because that's the last thing we want to do because of the balance. So we're not going to hook up a battery to this switch yet and mount the battery because we may end up having to put it back here somewhere in the fuselage depending on the weight, how this is going to balance. And like I said, I'm still a little bit concerned about all this weight from the aluminum motor mount and the engine being a little heavier, but we'll see. It may very well end up going right here and then the electronic battery going back there somewhere. We'll see. Alright, we got that done. So basically the electronic ignition is complete. Now we are ready to put the switches in, and we still got to do the fuel tank, but we'll do that here in a little bit. Let's go ahead and get our servos. I said switches, but I meant servos. So let me get my servos out, and we'll start mounting them back here and get the linkage hooked up to the choke and stuff. Okay, now that we know where our servos are going to go, we're going to mount our receiver. A little hole right there. A little hole right there. Let's get that out of the way. And I'll feed that. Let's see. These are kind of cantankers, hard to do. Let's see. Get under there. I think I can get my hand inside there and get the tip of it. Oh, almost. There it is. Oh, it came out. Alright, hang on. There, we got it. Okay. Alright. The foam down there. That's centered up. Usually I use Velcro, but this one I didn't want to cut big holes there, so let's get that. Okay, that's secured and on foam. It's not going anywhere. Let's cut that off without cutting any of our wires, and we'll wire this down here in just a little bit and get that out of the way. Okay, now let's see here. That's gonna go. Run that. Okay, we're gonna put that right over there. Let's drill some holes in that. Oops, I think that hole's too big. Let me get a different bit. Find what I did with my other bit. Well, shoot. What am I done with? Oh gosh. Well, hang on just a minute. Okay, found it. Now, scoot that over. That one there. This one. We'll go on this side. Let's see. I'm going to put that one right there for the throttle. Now, get our screws started. Alright, we're going to thread all these in, then take them out, put our super glue in. We'll be back in just a minute. Okay, we've got our servos mounted. I'm going to offset the arm to the right side on this choke one to keep it as straight as I can, and this one will offset to the right side also and keep it centered up. This is the throttle cable on the left, and this is the choke cable. Now, this choke cable, it's a flex cable, but it's a plastic filament inside of a plastic tube. And I got to cut this tube off now, so I have to be very, very careful not to cut all the way through it. So I'm going to use a razor knife and just very carefully slice around that gently until I get it cut. So we got to do that and get these cut to length, and then we'll cut this off. And what that plastic one does, you unscrew this threaded piece. Get the camera up here. You unscrew that, and then you cut the yellow piece off to where you need it and screw that back in, and then normally that has a clevis on it, but I'm putting it through a quick connect so I can adjust it real easy. So let's get these pieces cut off and then we'll come back. Alright, we've got the red sheath cut off, and all I did to that was score it with my knife around that, and then you can bend it and it'll just pop right loose. So there's an extra piece of tube we'll keep for something. Now I've got to determine where this goes, so I'm going to have to, let me plug the battery and stuff up and get this servo operating so I can tell where it's going to have to go. Okay, got the servos working. Now I hooked this choke servo on my radio. I hooked it to aux1, which on the JR9303 is this right here. Which I usually is my idle up on my helicopter, but on an airplane it's a 3-position switch. That way I have closed, half open, or closed, half open, and all the way open. I like a 3-position. Some people put it on their gear channel, but anyway, now what I got to do is get this. Let's see. Let me think if I have to reverse it. Yeah, I got to reverse that. Hang on just a second. Yeah, because to choke it, I have to pull it back. So, with the choke open, let's see where this is going to go. We'll start right there. And we're probably going to have to really tone this down because it's not going to have to go very far. Okay, that's all the way open. I'm going to put a mark here just for grins and giggles right now. Okay, and there's half. See, that's fully closed right there, so I'm going to have to really tone this thing down. Now let me go into sub trim. We'll go to the flat. Or no, travel adjustment, I'm sorry. There we go. Well, okay. Well, I had to shorten it down so much that it's actually only going to be a 1-position switch, but I don't want it to bind that, so it has that choke lever doesn't have very much movement at all. It's like less than 1/4 of an inch. So it chokes down. I need about that much in there, so we're going to mark this where to cut it. And on this one, we can actually use some dikes. Cut that off. Now, I'm gonna, since it doesn't matter if I mess up the threads on this, because I'm just gonna use it to go through that quick connect. So, let me get a knife here and open up my hole. I squished it. Okay. Now, we're going to take the vice grips and take that little bolt, or all thread, get it threaded in there. And to get it started straight, I can do this better with my right hand. Tell you what, might be able to start it without that. Shoot. Well, that was just real smart. I just broke it. So, what I'm going to have to do since I broke the inner part of it, I've already got all that glued in. I'm going to have to find a longer piece of all thread to go in there. So let me see what I can come up with. Okay, we've got the choke leveled out now. I wonder if I can bend that just a little. There we go. Alright, we got, there's open, or half closed, and closed. Alright, now we got to do the throttle. Get it done. I'm going to have to put that wire down there out of the way, put a zip tie around it or something. So, okay, we'll do that in a minute. Alright, now we got to do the same thing to the throttle cable. We have to cut it. Now it has a metal cable inside, so we're still going to be kind of careful with it. I'm going to cut it about right there. I'm basically just going to score this all the way around. Be careful not to cut your finger or any other wires. Now see, that just breaks and comes right off of there real easy. Now let's get the screw out of the servo. And let's see, servo's, see, back is open. There we go, it's the right direction. And then let's see if we can get this cable. Tell you what, I'm gonna have to cut that. Well, shoot, that ain't working. Wow. I have to get some cutters that'll cut. Let me see if my big ones will do it smooth. I need to cut it as smooth as I can. I'll tell you what, I ain't got no cutters worth a darn. None of them will go through this. This is crazy. Alright, I'll be right back. Okay guys, we had to do a little reworking here. Get the camera up here. Got the servos all mounted, throttle working. I did have to do one thing, Ray. The cable that I told you you'd have to have, it wouldn't work where I had to place it. The only way that would work is if you could anchor this plastic tubing against the sidewall somewhere where it can't flex. I never could get the flex out because this whole centerpiece here is in the middle, so I couldn't get that to flex, not flex. So I just left the plastic tube in there, and I got a thin piece of control rod, and it's probably 18, 19 gauge wire, but it's plenty stiff enough, and it's in such a straight line that it works fine. And what I had to do on the carburetor, where the throttle lever is, on the bottom, there's a little screw. You can take that out, and it'll only go one way. And then I put a quick connect onto that, and that way I fed my rod right between the muffler and the engine, and it fed right up in there. And I have a quick connect on here and a quick connect on the other end. I anchored it to the carburetor first, and then I used my adjustment up here, and then you'll have to use your travel adjustment to set your throttle. And I set my trim all the way down, the carburetor completely shut. I can pull it up to about middle ways, and it will, the engine should run right in there, in that area. And I did have to anchor it right here, and I took a block of balsa and glued to the tube, and then I zip tied that down because you want that tight, you don't want it slipping in any way. But anyway, finally got it all working properly. It took me a little while, so we've got all that done. Choke works good, got a 3-position choke. The receiver's mounted. I haven't mounted the batteries yet, of course. Next, I guess we'll do the fuel tank. So let me get all that stuff together and get my tools cleaned up, and we'll be back for that. Okay, got all the parts here to the fuel tank. Now, for you people that don't know, gasoline, it can be used in the tank that comes with the plane, but it cannot be used with the plug and the cap and stuff. It will eat it up. So you will have to buy a gasoline rated replacement cap and stopper for your tank. And you'll also have to have gasoline rated fuel line for your clunk lines inside and on the outside. Now I'm going to use this yellow fuel line here for going from the tank. I'm going to do a 2-line setup, so I'll have a T in my carburetor line, and my fill will come off of that. You can set it up with a 3-way if you want just a separate fill, but anyway, I'm going to come from the carburetor line from the tank to this T, and then off the T onto the carburetor, and then off of the outside the middle part of the T, I will come out with this neoprene black fuel line, gas fuel line hose. And the reason for it, that's a little bit stretchier and squishier, and I will be using this little fuel dot. This will mount in the side of the cowl, and then this fuel dot, you can stick it in that neoprene hose a lot easier. You can't hardly get it in that yellow, it's so stiff, and then that'll fit right up in there on the side of the plane. So that's why I'm using that. You can use yellow the whole way, but it's really hard to get the stopper in it. So okay, first thing we want to do is I've got my brass or aluminum tubes, and I've put them through the stopper, put the back plate on it. Now I'm going to start the screw into this. Now remember, this is plastic, so you don't want to over tighten it. I'm hoping this will tighten up. This is a Sullivan, I believe, replacement deal. It actually fits a little bit loose, and I'm hoping it'll expand to tighten up on this alright. So, alright, I'm going to put, of course the long one back here is my vent line. So what we're going to do is just bend that up and make sure it's almost to the top of the tank. Okay, that will work. And now I'm going to come off of the shorter line with my clunk line. It's pretty stiff stuff. It takes a little bit to get it on there, so okay. Alright, got that. Now I want to determine how much I'm going to need for my clunk. I don't want the clunk touching the back of the tank and forming a suction. So we're going to start right there, and actually what I'm going to use is a filtered clunk, so if I have any debris at all in that fuel tank, it won't suck it up. I have forgot to buy a gas rated fuel filter for my line, so I'll have to get that and add it to it later, but I do have this filter in the bottom of the tank, so I'll get that on there. Okay, now let's see. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter if this touches the back of the tank, because I'm thinking about a regular clunk that has a hole in the end of it. But anyway, okay, let's get that in there. Now let's see if this dude's going to tighten up in here. Keep in mind which way your tank goes. Up, the top. Man, that thing's stiff. I'm going to have to get it pretty snug before I even stick it in there. Okay, now let's see if it'll fit. Yeah, I think it's going to snug up just fine. Now I want to tighten that to where you can't turn this by hand, but don't over tighten it. I'm going to give it one more little turn, and that's squished up there tight. It won't. Now you can see the clunk is all the way to the back, and that's the way I'm going to set mine up. Now figure out where I'm going to put my T on this thing. Hang on, let me check this out and I'll be right back. Okay guys, we've got our fuel line. Hope you can see that. The light on it. And our fuel line coming out through the hole down behind the engine, and then I've got my T right here, and then this line is going to the carburetor, and then this is my fuel line. This will come out a little hole in the side of the cowl. I can pull it out and then push it back in there when I'm done filling or emptying. Now the vent line that comes off the tank, This is not a pressurized tank like a nitro engine. It's run from a fuel pump on the engine itself. That's why you can fill it without it flooding it like that off a T. You can't do a nitro engine that way inverted. Excuse me. Anyway, the vent line you want to bring up above your tank and make a loop out of it, and then down. So what I've done, I brought it up here, and I bought these little plastic brackets at Lowe's. You get them at any hardware store, and these are just little wood screws and washers. And what I did, I brought my fuel line up, out, made a complete circle, and then down the side here for a vent. And that's your overflow. When you're filling your tank, you watch that, and when it starts spilling out of that, you know your tank's completely full. But it also, by running it up over the tank and looping it and then back down, when you fly inverted or anything like that, it doesn't let the fuel leak out. So anyway, be sure you put your vent line up above the height of the fuel tank and coil it, and then drop it down when you do that. So alright, we have a completed engine. Electronics are all done inside except for the master switch over here. I've got to put that in. Do that here in a minute, and cut the cowl, and then I think we're ready to balance it after that. We are almost done. The cowl shouldn't take too long because there's no holes up here to cut. Now you can drill holes over in the top, which I probably will, so you can get to your low end and high end without having to take the cowl off. You can just drill 2 small holes that you can stick a screwdriver through to get to them. I haven't decided whether I want to do that and have the holes on top or pull the cowl if I have to adjust the engine. Actually, I'm going to run the engine in with the cowl off and probably fine-tune it like that. But I am going to go ahead and cut and fit the cowl today and try to get that on there. So, alright, let's park this thing for a minute and move on to getting the cowl cut. Let me get all the stuff out for that.